Deletion is only used for, oh, I just entered a client and another caseworker just entered it in on accident, so I just want to quickly get rid of that other client because, you know, it's a mistaken entry. So I want to make sure everybody understands the distinction between exit and delete. Questions? All right. Well, we're going to kind of go into the next part. That kind of does it for all the client data, you know, from clients, contacts, programs, assessments, all the information you need to collect the information on a client basis. Now we're going to kind of go over to an overview, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. Kind of the agency functions, kind of the components, user management. This is more for managers of the agency, plus those county contacts to how to create the funding sources and how some of the reporting works in the system. Now, just a note, all the PATH organizations that we've been in contact, we've been working with a lot of you guys for the past month where you've sent in those PATH provider forms. If you haven't talked to us about that, we have them up here. So maybe you can grab it before you leave, or maybe even fill it out real quickly so we can get you into the system. It's kind of a map to figure out what your spot is, what your users are, so we can work on that. But everybody who's been in contact with, your organization, your PATH programs, and all your users have all been set up in the system. So basically when you leave here today, you can jump on the system and start right off the bat. Now, if you haven't contacted us, it'll probably take us a little bit of time to get in the system, but this is more of an overview and kind of a management thing that we're going to kind of quickly go over. Now.
Technically, your start date was the beginning of the fiscal year, July 1st.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're about a month late.
Essentially what happened is we were going to do this for the July 1st date, and SAMHSA released a brand new annual report last minute, and we had to essentially fix some things, and it took us about a month to do that. So yes, yep.
Quickly, this is kind of the agency structure. We've kind of talked about it over here to say agency, program, site, kind of quick definitions of what it is. Agency top level, and then you got your programs, which actually provide the services, and the sites are locations where the services can be provided. So you can have an agent, program that's provided just one site or multiple sites. So they kind of all intermingle together. We create the agencies and organizations while management and ourselves kind of work together to create different programs and sites. But again, we're going to handle all your path setup and everything like that. This is for down the road kind of thing. Yeah, I'm just going to go straight into the path setup.
We're going to try to save some time here, and since we usually work with the agency managers hand in hand to set these things up, we're not going to cover them, but agency managers essentially have full control over how their physical locations and the programs at those physical locations are set up. So we're going to breeze past that, but certainly you can call us anytime and we can help with that.
And we'll show you a couple shots on the next, because we're going to go into the path setup. We kind of said before, each fiscal year, agency managers or program managers need to go into the path program and set up their individual services per funding type. There's basically, and we'll show you, there's 4 specific availabilities per each service, and it basically determines which services show up for your data collection people. There's also a budget that needs to be finished at least by the end of the fiscal year. That kind of includes your overall budget, some staff information, some SOAR training numbers that is reported on the PATH annual report. Now the services you need to set up soon before the data collection starts, because if you haven't set it up, then when you go to the service area, there's not going to be any services to attach to them. So that's something that you need to do sooner than later. So I'm going to go into the actual demo, and I'm going to actually log out with my intake person and go in with what we call an agency manager. A lot of the functions are the same. As you can see, the action menu is a little bit bigger. You have program, site, agency, user lookups, and here's where you create new sites and programs, so you can kind of get through to your components that way, kind of the agency stuff. A lot of times you can search by name, or a lot of times you just do a blank search, and basically the programs are going to show up on the screen, and you can easily just click them. And here we're going to go to the PATH program, because we're actually going to go into, and this is basically the profile, kind of controls information about your PATH program, what sites it's attached to. As you can see up here, what you're going to have to do is do a program lookup, go into your PATH program. Pretty much each agency is going to only have to deal with one program. And here are the two setup tabs. There's services and budget. We're going to go into services first, and that's the one that you need to worry about the earliest. And basically it's per fiscal year, which is basically July 1st through June 30th of every year. We only have the 2013 up, and you basically click on that, and as the fiscal years roll through, you're going to have to do this every fiscal year. By January 1st, 2014, the fiscal year for 2014 will pop up, so you can enter it in early so that you don't have any interruption of services. Basically, here are all the services.
Make a quick point. As he's talking about, I just want to make crystal clear this particular service setup piece. If you're an agency manager and you don't set this up, your users will not have access to record any services. So that's why he's saying this needs to happen first.
And each service here is listed, and this is already set up, because if it wasn't set up, I couldn't do the demo for the services, by 4 specific funding sources. Is it 100% PATH funded? Is it partially PATH funded? Do you provide it, but it's not PATH funded, and service not provided? So basically you go down each one of them. Now, if it's one of the top 3, basically either PATH funded or provided, then they show up in the service list when you see in the program, and your caseworkers and case managers can attach it to the client. If it's service not provided, basically it doesn't appear in the service list. So for that fiscal year, any service you enter between that date, it will not show up. That's basically what you need to do for all the services, as well as you need to pick your type of organization, and there's kind of a predefined list here. Once that's entered, you basically hit save, and it'll save the information, and you're done for this fiscal year. Now, we've got this copy previous button, so as the fiscal years roll through and you set them up, if your information is the same or similar, you can just click on this copy button, and it'll actually pull through the same settings as last year if they're exactly the same, or you can make a couple changes. Now, the budget kind of does the same thing, where it's built on a per fiscal year basis. And it's got 3 specific sections. The first is the budget information, where you basically enter in the total PATH funds, direct funds received from the state. The second one is the match funds. And the third one is any funds that aren't PATH that are used for your program. So we'll just say that. And as you can see, it kind of adds up the information here. The only requirement is that before you save it is you have to have at least $1 in your budget before it saves. The next information here is SOAR training. This is not something that's specific for the PATH report, but it's something DPW wants to track about SOAR. There's 2 basic information fields. The first is the number of users or staff that you've trained during the year. So you basically enter the number. The second one is the number of staff that you've trained over the course of the program. So you're basically going to add that up manually. Then the last one is basically the number of staff, like your FTEs. And as you enter in the staff people, it basically enters in, you basically enter in the fiscal year, the number of hours they worked on PATH. So if a person's worked like part-time, he'll enter 1,200, and then you enter in their total salary, and the system will automatically calculate the FTE that's actually going to be used on the PATH annual report. Now, if you go over somehow, like with their salary, if it exceeds the budget, it'll kind of give you a little note here, so it's probably a typo or something. And then you basically save that information. Now the budget is not something that you may have up front, so that's something that's not going to affect data collection, but it will affect reporting, so you need to make sure that's done before the PATH report is done at the end of the year. That's pretty much the PATH setup. User stuff, we're probably not going to go too much into the user stuff. User setup for new users, there is kind of a process that we go through. A lot of you guys we have set up. Now, it's not something where you guys can just call us up and say, hey, create this account. There is some paperwork that needs to be done. It's kind of a two-step process. So you basically have to fill out some paperwork that authorizes you for the system, as well as it's a self-registration process. So we'll kind of walk you through and send you the instructions where you create your own username and password in the system, and then we'll basically activate you to get you in the system. So it could take a couple days to go through the two steps to get everybody into the system.
And this is something, if this was needed, we'll hold your hand through it. It's not something you need to know yourself.
Yeah. Do we even want to go through the user stuff, like user maintenance? All right. Okay, we are now going to go to the PATH County administration stuff. This is the information for what we call kind of the grant administration or the PATH County contacts. They are required to have a set up account in the system to perform kind of grant funding and reporting oversight for data collection. What we're going to review is we're going to set up everybody as their county contacts, and we're going to attach them to the service providers that they fund. That's why it's important to fill out that PATH provider form so we know not only you're a county administrator, but what agencies you fund, because we need to set that up in the system so you have access through the contracting feature, which we're going to show you in a second. Now, once contracts or grants are set up in the system, county administrators, they're not going to have access to the direct data. You'll be able to see those data sheets, so you'll be able to see part of the data that's in the system. It's kind of going to be a read-only fashion, but you are going to get full reporting access to all the programs that you oversee, including data quality reports, enrollment reports, as well as the PATH annual report. I want to make sure everybody understands that. So now what we're going to do is go into the system.
While you're doing that, I'm going to say a quick note.
Sure.
And just so you know why we did it that way, county contacts obviously need to be able to report on the data that is funded through them. However, we did not want county contacts to be able to edit the data. So if you're a caseworker or you work for a provider agency, your county contact will not have access to change your data. So you don't have to worry about that. However, they will have access to report, to alleviate you from having to report.
Mm-hmm. Now, and there is, you will have access to report when you do this step, because basically what you're going to do is go through a grant contract setup. So basically when you log in, you're going to go to the agency lookup. It's all done through your agency, and a lot of times just do a blank search. It'll come up. Here's county administration. And here's your basically agency profile. And as you can see here, there's a grant administration tool here where you basically click on, and here is where you kind of set up. We have we've got master contracts, which is basically the contracts that are the money provided to you through PATH. It's your county money. And then there's agency contracts, and that's contracts that you actually provide the funding down to the service provider. So what you basically do is go in here and create your county contract, 2013, this county, PATH grant.
And we know, for instance, that this is a bit of a misnomer for this particular program, that you guys don't have contract numbers, so to speak. It was actually shocking to us when we found that out. However, everything that on this side is already set up by contract. So when you're looking at for PATH, just think contract as the dollars you've received from DPW. Don't have to take it literally. And your contract number, you can use whatever you feel will help you remember that specific pot of money.
Mm-hmm. And when you enter it in, it's a basic name and, like you said, the master grant identifier, whatever you would like it to be that makes sense. The funding source is always state, and then from the drop-down, because we also do this for ESG, make sure you do select the PATH funding type. And contracts, everything like the program setup and the path annual report is all by fiscal year. So every single program needs to be attached to a contract within their county, and this will enable the county administrators to do the reporting. So, of course, the drop-down is only 2013. You basically hit Add, and then down here is the second level of agency contracts. So this is basically the money you get from the county, and down here, once we realize who you're funding, in the drop-down is going to be all your organizations that you fund. So if it's just a single organization, you'll probably only have one there. Now, I know there's some of those county administrators that basically are kind of do double duty, where they're the county and the service provider. You'll only have yourself in the list. So in a sense, you're giving yourself money. But that's basically what you need to do to set it up. So in this one, I'm basically going to provide money just to this service provider agency, which is what we did all the demos with. So we'll just enter it in and just call it agency grant. And we can just call it local 1. And as you can see, it inherits the path funding type as well as the fiscal year. And then you hit Add, and that's basically providing the agency with money. The last step, and one of the most important, is basically you're attaching the path program to the agency contract. So usually most of these service providers are only going to have one path program. So basically you click on it and you hit Add, and that's pretty much the process. You create the county grant, the agency grant, and then you need to attach the path programs to this agency contract. And what that's basically saying is when you report on either this agency contract or this master contract, it's going to include all the client data, contacts, enrollments in these associated programs. And that's what's going to actually, instead of having direct program access, you're going to have access to these programs to report through this contract. So any programs attached there is what you report on.
And the reason this is done this way is so that county grant administrators for PATH, or county contacts, do not have access to data that they don't fund, especially with agencies that have HUD-funded programs, maybe a mental health program. They don't want their county contacts to see all their data. So this particular piece essentially tells the system, as a county contact, what data you have access to.
So also, between the responsibility of the county,
yes,
the funds for the providers that have funded.
Yes.
So will the agency, director, staff, or the administrators of the agency, do they have access to that tool, or that tool is just seen by the county?
The very top level here, the level at the top, the master contract, is only seen by the county. Agency managers and county contacts are both able to access those next two levels. So a county contact can set up an initial grant and tell the system which agency they give it to, and the agency manager could do the rest.
Also, on here, you won't be able to separate out your state and federal money. You know how we have a federal portion? At least I don't see it in there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Some counties say they get $30,000 in federal dollars, even though it comes from us. Some counties also get the required state match, say $10,000. So what you're saying on here is that you'll have to add the 30 and the 10 for $40,000 and put it in on that state money, correct?
That's up to you.
Okay. Well, how can we make it?
All right, so you're talking about the state versus federal and the setup. That state versus federal means if you had federal funding that you got directly from the federal government, no pass-through to the state, it would be federal. If you got money passed through the state, which PATH is, you pick state. It doesn't mean that the state is fully funding those dollars.
Right, I know. But in our annual report, they ask how much is federal dollars.
Yeah, and then we collect that on the budget page. It's not done through this. This is,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is basically for data. Now, we do have optional fields for contract amount, but they don't need to be filled out. I mean, if you want to put it in, you can, but it doesn't do any kind of contract or financial tracking through this system. All right.
Carol? Question?
Can we, if our county had a
That's a great question. Yeah, this contracting is not something that will prevent you from doing data collection. So you can do all the data collection. This can be done after the fact. It's just until this is done, the PATH annual report and the county administrators won't be able to run or get data out of the system that way.
So essentially the county contacts don't set this up, the only ones that are hurting are themselves.
And just to show you real quick what we talk about read-only, that same Ben Smith that we put in, now if you are a county contact, you can go ahead and search for them. They'll show up, but when you click on them, you don't get into the profile, you go straight into the data sheets. That's what we kind of talk about read-only versus editability. So you get to see the information, but not touch it. Now we are going to go pretty much into reporting. We're on the final stretch here. There's two kinds of reports in the system. There's what we call the back office or the canned reports. These are reports that have been predefined to produce certain types of data, data quality, program and service usage information, as well as we have the fully new PATH annual report programmed in the system. So entering that data in will be compiled and put on that the output through the annual report. We also have a custom query tool, which we'll talk about briefly, and it basically is a query tool where you can go through and do a whole bunch of filters to kind of generate a custom extract to try to get extra data throughout the system. And we'll kind of show you how that works, some of the templates we have, some enrollment templates, some demographic templates. So that's kind of a neat tool to use to produce extra data in the system. And kind of with reporting, we don't have any extra set of permissions, so you don't have a data collection set of permissions and a report set of permissions. Whatever you can do through the system, from client program entry, if you have access there, you will be able to report on that data through the system as well. I am, yeah. We're going to kind of show you the two different reports. They're basically broken up into two different folders. We've got the client program reports, which are basically available to everybody, all users in the system. And they kind of use program, like if you select the agency and the program and it gives you the data, while agency site reports are only available to managers, kind of some higher level functions, as well as that's where some of the contract reporting is. So some county people are going to look in the agency site reports for that. Now the PATH annual report is available to everybody, and we will show you that in this demo. I'm going to go ahead and load an agency person. Now here are the reports basically on the tool section. In a custom report, that is actually that custom query tool that we're going to show you in a little bit. The report section here, you click on that, and that takes you to basically our back office reports. And here's the two folders. If you click on the little plus, it kind of opens up. As you see, we have a fair amount of agency site reports, as well as client program reports. And most of the reports you're going to run are going to be in this area. Each one kind of has a basic filter. We're going to start with some of the most popular ones, kind of quickly going through it. It's the active client data quality report. Kind of shows data quality for your site, as well as it gives you a client listing. A lot of the filters here, the main filters are by agency, the organization you're attached to, by program type, that's the type of program you have, and as you can see down here, there is a PATH program type. As well as the individual program, and that's the programs you actually enroll the clients into. So as you see here, you basically can select the filter of what clients you want to get out of the system, and all reporting is based on, a lot of it is based on enrollment. So a lot of this data, a lot of the reports are only going to show clients that are actually enrolled into the program. You basically enter in some, the date range that you want to look at. And the date range basically pulls all clients that are enrolled or in the program during that time frame. And you basically hit view, and the system basically is going to run through the data and pull up the information. All the reports are in real time. There is no kind of like data querying or data warehousing where you have to wait a half hour. If you go and change data or enter data in the system and save it, you should be able to immediately go into the reports and see the updates reflected. Basically shows information. This is a good report because it shows data quality. You'll kind of get used to which reports you prefer throughout the system. One thing I do want to mention is a lot of times they come up in this browser form where you can kind of scroll. Sometimes they can be multiple pages, so you'll use this page, but I think it's kind of clunky looking through the browser, so I use this export tool here, and it's basically a good way to export data out of the system. You can do it in Adobe or Excel. You click on it, and it basically can open the report in a nice, easy-to-read or save format. So I definitely recommend you looking at reports, exporting it out. Makes it a lot easier. Another good report is the client program usage report. As you can see, once you get kind of used to the filters for one report, all the reports pretty much work the same way. Kind of enter in the dates. Program usage is real good because it shows enrollment data as well as services data. So you can see, if you're thinking, hey, I think I should have 10 people enrolled into the program, and you only have 8, you're like, oh, well, a couple of people aren't enrolled, or you have 15. Maybe that means certain people that have left the program haven't been exited in the system. That's a real good report to kind of stay on top of your data as well. Now, the final, those are probably the two most prominent and important reports in the system, provide a lot of good data there. Now, as we see down here, we basically have the past annual report. Basically click on that link. And this is the completely written to the latest specifications, the handouts that Amanda had of the actual provider form and this provider guide. We built the report off that. And basically you can run it by agency and by program. It's run on a per fiscal year basis. So you can only get data within the fiscal year. You can get data shorter than that. So if you want to run it basically just for like the month of June or July.
Or the quarter.
Or the quarter. Yeah, you can do that. It'll give you data shorter than the fiscal year, but not greater. So if you actually try to cross fiscal years, it'll actually, the data will end when the actual fiscal year is, which is the June 30th of that following year. Basically, you just hit download, and the system, because the report takes a little bit to generate, it actually pops up directly in PDF format. And as you can see here, you've got your budget section. That's why it's important to fill that out, as well as data information for all the client stuff. A lot of this is about contacts and enrollments. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that. It's pretty much as the provider guide stated. Services, as well as referrals. And as you can see, they report on assisted and attained. That's why it's important to record everyone in the system. As well as we have a demographic section, which is basically both contacted and enrolled persons. It's got, gender, age, race, ethnicity, veteran status, and then some of the assessment stuff. So with enrolled persons, you probably should collect all that data. With contacts, because the information is sparse, you want to try to at least collect some of the basic demographics like age, race, ethnicity. But again, we've been told that that data, because of how HMIS collects certain data elements where it doesn't occur until the program, it could be a little bit lacking there.
Can you go back? Yeah, right there. Past county contacts too. You can run it against. You can run it for multiple programs at the same time. And the reason this is good is because rather than having to, let's say you had 6 providers that you're providing funding to, or you were the pass-through for, you would not have to run this report 6 times. You could run it once.
Yeah, I was going to go into that next.
Sorry, I'm preempting here.
That's okay.
You can run it one time, and the system will deduplicate and aggregate everything into one report. Certainly you can run it separately if you want to see what data each agency is contributing, but to comply with DPW's requirements, you'll be able to run it all at one time.
Yeah, and I actually kind of switched over, because if you're a regular user or, caseworker or agency manager, a lot of times you're not going to report by contract. You're going to have direct access to the data. You're going to be picking the agency and program. Now, the county contacts, I kind of switched over to that. You're going to be reporting by contract. And as you can see here, you're going to have both your master contract as well as your individual agency contracts, as it's kind of the sub. Now, like Dan said, if you pick the master contract, it's going to give you all the data from all your agencies underneath. Now, if you only have one agency, like in this example here, whichever contract you pick, it's going to be the same data. But it's where the master can bring together like 5, 6 programs in the agency, is if you have 5 or 6 different agency contracts. Now, kind of to continue with the contract thing, we'll kind of get back to the PATH annual report. Now, as we kind of showed with those data quality and program usage, if you're a county contact, since you don't have access to the direct program, you're not going to be able to run them through that area. But what we did create is these data quality by contract and program usage by contract reports. So if you want to look at your programs that you oversee's data quality or their enrollments, you'll have to come in and also report them by contract. So that's a way to kind of get to the data without having direct access. Now, kind of back to the PATH annual report, one thing that I want to kind of talk about is we have this Show Details button here, and it's good for not only county contacts, but for individual caseworkers, because not only does it show the aggregate data on the form, it actually, once you get all the way to the bottom, it basically provides a detail section. Now, for county contacts, especially when they're aggregating a bunch of data together from multiple counties, it shows every single agency and program that's included on that report and kind of shows, hey, have they completed their budget, have they completed their services, as well as the individual numbers from it. So if you look at it and the budget's way high or way low, you can come and run this client details to kind of figure out who's the culprit or who you need to work with to get their data fixed. Now, down below that, each section also, while the PATH annual report kind of has aggregated numbers where, 30 contacts, 10 services, it doesn't really show where that data is from. So we always like to include client details. So if you think, oh, well, I think I should have 15 contacts, why does it say 12, or why does it say 18? You can come in this area, and it actually shows what clients and what records the data comes from. So it'll help you backtrack, especially for the people that do the actual data collection, so they don't have to guess in the system where the data is. They can go right to the client, fix the data, and then rerun the report. And that is pretty much the back office reporting from both the contract and the program basis. Now what I'm going to do is kind of show you our custom report query, which is kind of a neat, powerful tool. You basically have the ability to slice and dice data any way you want. You basically click on this custom reporting tool. And not only do we have the ability to kind of run a query per data element, we also have the ability to save your favorite query. So if you're looking for, I want to see, veterans in this county for this year, you don't have to reset up the report every time. You can quickly save it. Every user gets up to 25 queries that they can save and instantly rerun. It's by program name or by program type. Program name is pretty straightforward, where you go in, you can report on all the clients within one program. Now the program type is a little more flexible, where it basically allows you a number of different combinations of agency and program type, and we'll kind of show you that. You basically put in the date range. Let's say I just want to run data for this year. And what we have is a bunch of templates, and this is how kind of the data is output. You can get just demographic information, enrollment, outcome, income, reports, or services. The general is basically a combination of the top 4, which are demographic, enrollment, everything like that. When you click on the template,
I'm sorry, Brian. Real quick, the date range here on the custom query tool, it's different than the one he mentioned before with the back office reports. The back office reports are set up by some kind of business rule, requirement, federal law, whatever it was used to define that report. So for your past annual report, the reason that it only reports for the one fiscal year is because that's the way the report has to be designed. If you want to get data across fiscal years, you can come into this custom query tool, and the query tool will literally run the data for the entire time range that you input. So just wanted to...
Yeah, you can run it for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Good point. Now, we're going to start with something fairly simple. We'll just call it the enrollment. We just want to see all of our enrollments. And as you can see here, you've got some report filters where you can actually report on different program types. So we're going to go in here, and how the filters work is you can do multiple inclusions and exclusions, and you move them back and forth. So the double arrows move them completely, while I want to say, well, we're in a path, so I only want to look at past programs. So it's just going to show me data from past programs. I'm also going to include demographics. So here's some enrollment data, and as you can see, these filters open up, and you can actually click on these and show the different data. So I just want to see veterans that have...
Are you going to return any data?
Yeah, I don't know. I might. So that's kind of how you can go through each of those filters and be very specific on what data you want to bring back. You know, maybe you only want to see people with literally homeless, or you only want to see people with this housing status at entry. So it's very flexible in all the data that you actually want to see.
Essentially, all the filters build on each other.
Yep.
If you have 6 filters set up, it cross-references them all. Yes, the back.
For 13, 14, what do you mean, how does it affect it?
Some of the things that are in the annual report now, not in HMIS, the annual report we have now, going to go away.
Okay. No, what you're going to do, you're going to use both, and I said that earlier. Until the feds say we're no longer using our annual report, you're going to be reporting in our old system. Our current system.
I think I understand what she's asking.
Okay, so if I'm understanding your question correctly, this new past annual report is the one that they're going to start requiring as of this December.
Right.
So in order to generate this report for a full fiscal year, you obviously need to have a full fiscal year of data collection in one system or the other. So you won't be able to run this report, this December's report from PA-HMIS until you have at least a year worth of data. So this December's report, you're going to be using your old systems while collecting data in the new system.
Right, because technically, you're going to see that, because actually what you're going to be reporting in December was
Old data.
12-13 data.
Yeah.
That's how we always do. So it won't affect that this year. So you're going to report into this system in whatever data collection you've been using. Now next year, because that's why we wanted to have it early in the fiscal year, you're not too far into this year. The idea is that come next December of 2014, you will be able to
push a button
and get what you need.
Now I can.
I will say, though, that SAMHSA has kind of screwed the pooch on this a little bit, in the sense that the report that's coming due in December is this new format, and you guys have not been collecting data that way so far. So there's going to be some manual data collection, I'm sure, that but Amanda and your federal TA people will have to help you with that, I'm sure.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Before I go there, hold on one second. There was a webinar on data reporting. Did you guys participate in that? That talked about this new report. So it is archived. I have to go back and find the email, but you're able to get back in and look at that and view the webinar from this new report so that you know what you need to be getting. I think, to be honest with you, I think you guys are getting that already, some of the information. Some of you may not be, but I think you'll be able to find out or figure out what information you need to figure out on this, for this new report this year. But usually what the feds will do when it comes close to time for us to do a report, they usually do some type of conference call or something about the annual report. And if they don't, I will try to have them on our call so that when we're reporting, we're getting the right information, at least for this year in December or January, whenever you decide you have to report.
Yes.
When you cross fiscal years, you'll be under the services and programs for services?
No, okay, I almost misunderstood your question. On the agency setup, you would need to enter a new fiscal year budget and the new services available for that fiscal year. However, any data you store about a client stays there. So if the services if they received the service under a previous fiscal year and now you're in a new fiscal year, those old services are still going to be there. You could run that.
What if they're attached to a service that changes in the year then?
That's why we have that setup page so that the system knows where you are in your fiscal year.
Yeah, and that's why when you enter a service, you enter the date, so it knows, hey, which fiscal year is which setting. So that's why it populates based on the date of the service.
Yeah, but if you continue to do the new fiscal year, it might change.
Each service is a one-time, one-day thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like case management, it goes on forever. It's per instance, and that's the way we were told to program it.
Anything else?
Data entry. I'm a little confused because I'm trying to look at households, and that's our household. So I had a past eligible client that was enrolled, and they had a boyfriend, and I was trying to put him on the system, but he never came in and signed the paperwork, and he wasn't really a client, but he was household.
You guys are asking every question today that I thought you wouldn't ask. The system, we purposely avoided this because Amanda told us that you guys only serve individual people, 18 or older. However, the system also has household functionality. So you can add multiple people together in a household. If you do a program enrollment, it will prompt you to ask if you want to include other members of the household. Yeah, but for her
Let me
program.
ask another question.
Yeah, not for that, but for your other HUD programs as well.
How many of you are serving households in PASS? So it means there's 2 adults over the age of 18, both of them are enrolled in PASS. But you don't count that data, you don't count the kids.
No, I don't report them as an individual tax person. I just put them on the system as a household. But you're right, I don't.
You're not.
Tax numbers, I don't count them.
You're not counting, and maybe I'm not understanding, you shouldn't be counting individuals with kids, someone that's not enrolled in PASS does not fit the PASS criteria, even though it may be me, my boyfriend, and 2 kids. And I'm the only one enrolled in PASS. You're only giving data for me. You're only giving data for me.
But is there ever a time where you have 2 people in a household eligible for PASS at the same time?
Yes.
There is.
And
It sounds like we need to do an update then. You can, right now, you could enroll them as separate individuals. The system would simply not see them as a household. But what we'll do, for every other program that exists in the system, we allow households to be enrolled. We'll have to extend that functionality of this program. And we were under the impression that it wasn't possible.
Right, and maybe that was my fault, because they wouldn't count, and when I think a household, I mean, you're counting data for everybody. And so in a household, you would have, if it was one person, when we originally talked, it would be me, you know, the boyfriend's not eligible, I'm eligible, and I have 2 kids. So I wouldn't consider that a household, but in some cases you have, I would much rather you enter it as 2 separate individuals, because the feds don't look at it as at least as far as I can see, and maybe you see something different. The feds don't see it as a household.
I understand the difference here. In the real world,
It's a household.
it's a household,
In the
and
world,
the
it's
system should mimic their ability to, instead of doing everything multiple times. Essentially, a household is a construct in the system that allows you to tell the system who belongs together. For HUD, households matter, households get reported. For PATH, they don't. However, we also have functionality that you can enroll all members or pick certain members from a household to be enrolled at the same time, and you do one process instead of repeating the process over and over. So it would save you time. So what we'll do is, essentially when you do a program enrollment, usually the system prompts or asks you if you want to include other household members, and we'll simply extend that to PATH. And you'll just have to be cognizant that if people aren't PATH eligible, you just don't enroll them. They could still be in a household, they just won't be in the program.
So therefore, they're not reporting 2 addresses, all of that stuff.
Right.
Correct. All right. Is that okay?
But
You guys-
right this second, that's not available.
Okay.
But that'll be in the next update.
Yeah. It's not that it's not available. You can still create a household. You just have to do the enrollments individually.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to finish up with the...
But thank you for bringing that up.
Finish up the custom query tool. Basically, once you've done all the filters, you can basically just hit generate report.
I forgot we were still on this, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just finish up real quick. And this data, unlike the back office reports, which are kind of built to be viewed right there on the screen, these are kind of long kind of reports that have lots of data. They're kind of meant for analysis outside the system. We definitely recommend using the export option. Pick Excel, hit the export. It'll be a lot easier to read. Play with that, a bunch of different templates. Also, if you got a favorite one, all you have to do is enter a name, hit Save New, and then it's in the system. So when you come back in, all you have to do is click on it, and it'll automatically reload those filters again. So if it's a really complicated one, you don't have to spend 10 minutes re-entering it. You just have to quickly pick it, hit generate, and you've got your data. That's it. One other thing I want to mention that kind of does it for the actual system training. We do have some help and support links here down in the help and support area. If you need the email for support, you can click that. It'll kind of pop up email address information, as well as click here to send for an email. It'll come straight to the help desk, basically myself. Here's also a link to the new PA website right here. And it's not only the new PA, it's new PA, the HMIS website. We have a ton of information on it, from documentation, the client consent forms, user agreements, new user setup, as well as down here we've got, as Dan mentioned, we've got about 16 hours of training on the website for the grant funding sources. And actually we just have the PATH stuff got added this morning, so that can be viewed. Those are just the trainings that we've given out. This is being recorded, so hopefully within next week we'll get it edited, get that up there so everybody can actually listen to it, or parts of it for today's training. A bunch of feature guides, a bunch of information there that kind of provides a ton of information for whatever feature you're doing within the system. Also want to kind of show you, well, if you don't have access to that web page through the system, here's our website, www.newpa.com/PAHMIS. That will take you directly to the same page. We usually try to get people to go there. It's a great resource. We always try to keep it updated with the latest training materials.
It also has copies of all the forms, standard operating procedures, release of information, privacy policy, everything is right there on that one page.
Well, that does it. If anybody has any questions about the HMIS system, kind of setup, functionality, I'm the guy to contact. The HMIS is the help desk. There's my email address that kind of comes to the help desk, or you can give me a call at the number there, 214-5326. Any questions about the PATH program requirements? I'm sure you guys know, contact Amanda at DPW. If anybody has any questions, we'll go ahead and field them.
And real quick, while we're giving out email addresses, I don't know why we didn't put mine on here. I'm typically less available than Brian is. He's dedicated to just the help desk stuff. But certainly you can elevate something to me if you need. My email address is Daniel Fox without the L, so D-A-N-I-E, F as in Frank, O-X, at PA.gov. I think we had a question back here.
It's not really a question, it's a comment.
Yes.
I just wanted to let Brian know how much we appreciate. I work for no nursing agency, and
Light bulb,
it
yeah.
has been such a tremendous help.
I appreciate it.
I think Jimmy had you on speed dial.
I have them on speed now too, trust me. I work a lot in the design and complying with regulations and, you know, essentially a lot of the front-end stuff, but Brian is this guy definitely day-to-day who figures out all the weird little idiosyncrasies and ways people try to use the system. He's awesome.
Brian, you've been extremely helpful, and the system has improved all the time.
Thank you. We've working hard. We got a ways to go, but thank you very much.
Yeah, I got money for you up here.
We get the PowerPoint electronically printed those.
Yes, actually, and Amanda did bring that up. The version that again, you guys are on a different group. Usually, everyone always wants the note handouts. We'll also print out the full, or post on the website here, the full PowerPoint. So you can see the slides full page.
Yeah, and this is kind of the abbreviated one. We actually have one that's took a while to do.
147 slides.
159 slides, so it is a complete unabridged reference for PATH usage. So we'll post that on the website as well. So, and it's also got note sections, not just slides, but notes. So that'll be up there through if you want to kind of dig through it. You're more than welcome. Absolutely, yeah. It's pretty much 75% screenshots. Yeah.
Can't believe you guys aren't running for the hills yet. Any other questions? I mean, we're not, obviously we got done a little early so you guys can make it home, but we're not planning on running away scared, so if you have questions, we'll be up here.
And also, if there's anybody that hasn't worked with HMIS, that you know that you're coming on board with those PAT provider forms, we have them up front. Come pick them up, fill them out, so we can get you aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you.